Okay, so you know how sometimes you stumble across these travel blogs and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's what today's deep dive is all about.
Okay.
We are diving into this article titled, Why You Should Seriously Go to North Korea, Hear Me Out. Seriously.
North Korea, of all places.
Not exactly known for being a top vacation spot.
Yeah, it's not exactly giving like beaches and sunshine vibes, is it? More like
A little more on the intense side.
yeah, exactly. But the article starts off by saying it's like stepping back in time to the 1950s, except with this like dystopian twist.
Interesting. So what makes North Korea so different historically and culturally? I mean, what makes it stand out so much?
Well, that's what I'm hoping you can help us unpack today.
All right, let's give it a shot. What is it about their history, their culture, that makes it so unique, so unlike anywhere else you could possibly imagine?
Well, you have to consider the isolation, decades of it. That and a very, very strict political ideology have really shaped North Korea into what it is today. It's almost like they're frozen in time,
Yeah.
clinging to a very particular narrative. It's a specific worldview that hasn't really changed.
So you're saying it's like this weird time capsule, or like walking onto the set of some retro-futuristic film, or where everything is a little too perfect, a little too staged.
No, that's a really good analogy.
Is that what makes it appealing to some travelers? This whole like exclusive bragging rights thing the article mentioned? Like, oh, you went to Paris. That's cute. I went to North Korea.
Yeah, they definitely played up that angle.
It's like the ultimate travel one-upmanship. But on a serious note, what is it about us wanting these unique experiences, these stories that nobody else can tell?
I think it's more than just wanting to stand out. It's this very human desire for something different. We crave novelty, experiences that push us outside our comfort zones.
And it doesn't get much more outside the comfort zone than North Korea.
You got that right.
One thing that really jumped out at me was the whole guided tour situation. You're basically assigned a government minder who controls your entire itinerary. You don't get to just like wander off and explore on your own.
Yeah, the article was pretty upfront about that. You're basically experiencing the country through a very specific lens, one that the government wants you to see.
So no straying from the beaten path, no spontaneous detours or anything like that.
Not if you want to stay on your minder's good side.
Right, because who knows what could happen. But I guess in a way, you're trading freedom for this highly curated experience.
And I think that's a good way to put it. You're getting access that most people would never dream of, but it comes at a cost.
Fascinating. So tell me, what's the deal with Pyongyang? The article described it as this surreal blend of wide boulevards, futuristic buildings, and of course these massive, larger-than-life monuments.
Yeah, it's a city of contrasts, for sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of futuristic, have you heard of the Ryugyong Hotel?
No, what is that?
Imagine a giant pyramid in the middle of the city, unfinished.
They built a pyramid-shaped hotel.
Well, they tried to. It's been under construction for over 30 years.
30 years. Seriously. That's longer than I've been alive. What's the story there?
It's a long and complicated one. Let's just say there have been delays.
I bet. So it's just this, like, abandoned concrete pyramid in the middle of their capital city.
Essentially. Although they do light it up at night sometimes, try to make it look presentable.
I don't even know what to say to that. It's just,
Right.
wow. But this whole thing with the massive buildings and monuments, it kind of reminds me of what you were saying earlier about the government wanting to project a certain image.
Exactly. It's all very deliberate.
So these aren't just landmarks, they're statements.
Exactly. They're trying to shape the narrative, control how people view them.
And part of that narrative is that North Korea is one of the safest countries in the world. At least that's what the article claims.
Well, they're not wrong, in a way.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're not going to find pickpockets on the streets of Pyongyang. Violent crime is practically unheard of.
Because everyone's too afraid to step out of line.
Something like that.
So it's like safe, but not really safe.
I guess is one way to put it.
You're safe from like petty crime, but there's this whole other level of risk.
Right. It's not about getting mugged in a back alley. It's about accidentally saying the wrong thing or taking a photo in the wrong place. Things that wouldn't even be a second thought in most countries could land you in serious trouble in North Korea.
So no candid Instagram photos then?
Not unless you want to risk it. And it's not just about what you do, it's about what you say too. Criticizing the government, even casually, is a huge no-no.
It sounds exhausting. Like you can't really relax, always looking over your shoulder.
Didn't the article mention something about constant surveillance?
Oh yeah, that's a big part of it. Think cameras everywhere, checkpoints, the whole 9 yards. And then there are the minders, right? Like, they're not exactly going to give you privacy.
Pretty much. They're watching your every move, listening to your conversations, even the locals. You never know who might be keeping tabs on you.
So you're basically surrendering your freedom for this highly curated glimpse into North Korea.
That's the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
But there are moments, even with all that control, where you get a sense of what life is like there.
That's what I was curious about. The article talked about the DMZ tour being really intense. What is it actually like to be there? Standing on that border, looking into North Korea?
It's surreal. You're right there on the dividing line, this buffer zone between two countries that are technically still at war. You've got soldiers on both sides, guard posts, this palpable tension in the air.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, but it's very real. You can feel the weight of history there, the ideological divide that still exists.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. So, okay, you've got this controlled environment, this constant tension. But what about everyday life? Does the article touch on that at all? What about their food?
They do mention the food. Apparently, it's more diverse than people realize.
Really? What kind of food are we talking about?
Think noodles, dumplings, different kinds of meat dishes. They even have kimchi, but it's a bit different than what we're used to.
Interesting. Imagine sitting down for a meal in Pyongyang, trying to make conversation with the locals.
That would be something else, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to bridge that cultural and political gap, seeing the world through their eyes, even for a moment.
It's like even in this place that feels so foreign, so different, there's still that shared human experience of sitting down to a meal together.
Food really does have a way of connecting people, doesn't it?
It's like a universal language. But you know, one thing the article didn't shy away from was the whole propaganda thing.
Right.
They called North Korea a living museum of 20th century totalitarianism, which is a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what they meant by that. Like, how does that actually manifest in everyday life?
Well, they talked about how you walk down the street and you're surrounded by these larger-than-life murals and slogans everywhere you look.
And the newsstands, right? I remember reading about how they're all filled with state-controlled media.
It's like this constant barrage of messaging, like you can't escape it.
Exactly. It's inescapable, a constant reminder of the state's ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Even just walking down the street must feel surreal.
It's like, how could you not be affected by that? Imagine being constantly exposed to that kind of messaging, day in and day out.
It really makes you think about the power of propaganda, how it shapes your reality.
It's like, we might not have giant murals and loudspeakers blasting propaganda here, but we're still bombarded with messages all the time, right? Advertising, social media, the 24-hour news cycle. It's a different kind of influence, but it's still there.
It's a good reminder to be critical of everything you see and hear, no matter where you are.
Totally. So after diving into all of this, I have to ask, is North Korea a must-see travel destination?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's not a simple answer.
It's not like saying, oh, you have to go to Paris or you can't miss the Grand Canyon. This is a whole different ballgame. There are serious ethical considerations, potential risks. You're supporting a regime with a very questionable human rights record.
All things to really think about before you book that ticket. But I can see the appeal. It's like this forbidden fruit, this glimpse into a world that most people will never see.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that's part of the draw for some people. The exclusivity of it, the chance to experience something truly unique.
And maybe a little bit dangerous too, like you're stepping into the unknown.
There's definitely an element of that.
It's definitely a trip that would stay with you, for better or for worse. Not your average vacation, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. It's more about challenging yourself, confronting your assumptions, really getting outside of your comfort zone in a way that most trips just don't offer.
I think that's a good place to wrap up this deep dive. We covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
We talked about the allure of the unknown, the ethics of travel, and the power of propaganda.
And everything in between.
It's clear that North Korea is a complex and controversial destination, to say the least. But sometimes the most challenging journeys are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves and the world around us.
I agree. It's all about asking those tough questions, seeking out different perspectives, and being open to having our own views challenged.
Well said. So next time you see one of those travel blogs that makes you do a double take, don't shy away from it. Dive in, explore the complexities, and see where it takes you. That's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring.